Evening, guys. Hope we're all well. A few little technical issues again, but we're all good. How are we doing, everyone? Got the customary cuppa. I've got real issues trying to turn and make a full turn off the ball. Any ideas? Okay. Hey Marcus, what's today's topics? Hope you guys are doing great. Yeah, really good, thank you. Darren, notebook at the ready. Well, today, or tonight should I say, where I am, we're going to talk a little bit about what I discussed this morning on the Insta Live chat. So, if you've not had a chance already, this morning I did the couple with Marcus, and it was based on feedback. So, how you learn from feedback, and how you can best positively for the next shot. So are you progressing? Are you adapting with your next swing or your next putt? So I used putting this morning, and we used some very simple kind of exercises. It's actually from it's an exercise that I conducted in a research, actually the module for my university, and it was based on basically feedback loops. And what's the best kind of feedback, and how often do you need it, the frequency, what's the optimal kind of frequency for retention. So they did pre and post tests for putting, and this morning Helen, my trusty assistant, my partner, she helped out this morning taking some measurements. So what I did was I drew the sheet back. I was on the other side, and I was putting through the sheet, under the sheet. Sorry, that'd be a magician if I was putting through it. And although I had the magician's assistant this morning, I'm not a magician, unfortunately. And so I did an 8-foot putt. We chalked it, start and target, and then Helen gave me feedback. I wasn't allowed to see the putt. She was just giving me a measurement. So all I could see was my putting action, and then I was having to use that action and manipulate it to adjust the outcome. So essentially taking away the visualization of the outcome in reality. It was all an interpretation in my mind. So that was kind of representative if you were looking at just your golf swing and hitting a golf shot and not really looking at the shot and dragging another ball and thinking about the swing. And we started to draw comparisons between full swing and this exercise that I was doing with putting. What would it be like if you were to reenact this on the driving range in a practice exercise in a training session and not take too much notice of the outcome? What feedback would you be denying yourself And therefore, what opportunity are you denying yourself to adapt positively and start to explore and find your natural patterns? So we talked, the first exercise was purely just distance based. And so how far or short, how far left and right, and all I could do was just react to the numbers she was giving me. Then we took this away in between shots. So I could hit a shot, have a look, then go back, have another shot, and that was noticeably better. So as soon as I could see the feedback, it was better. But I was still limited. I could have a look, I had to retain that. It was essentially a memory recall exercise where I'm then trying to match an action to that memory. And then tested myself. And then we took the screen away, and then I was looking at the target. And then just purely looking at the target. And not looking at the stroke, only looking to set up, and then looking where I'm going and putting, and the direction improved considerably, and also the distance control. So I was getting closer to the distance, the 8-foot distance, some past, some short, but much, much closer. And directionally, I was pretty much straight all the time, definitely within a capture size of a hole. So my performance improved dramatically, and this is kind of what the study shows. So it was all about knowledge of results, which is ultimately that's the information you're taking in. Either that's from a coach or knowledge of the golf shot, the outcome. Maybe you've got a launch monitor giving you the yardages, and so essentially you've got information. And that is knowledge of results of that particular shot. It's outcome information. But it's how you use that outcome information and where your attention is and what information you are acting on. So by constraining the system, i.e. that sensory input because of the information that we were receiving, we could see the effect on my performance. And then as we started to allow myself to react to the golf shot more, performance went up. So we started to then compare this to what it might be like on a driving range. If you were just raking ball after ball and hitting, and after it's about 20, 30 yards in the air, if you're not quite happy with the shot. And so therefore, you can start to appreciate how much you can be denying yourself of essential, critical information to create a feedback loop for you to actively respond to and adapt the movement. So that's the self-organisation model. We need the feedback loop, and we need different forms of feedback. Now, we started to appreciate the value of actually seeing the target and visualising the shot and keeping attention there, as opposed to it being distracted, maybe by a launch monitor or something like that, where suddenly we can start to value the numbers more important than the actual golf shot. Almost using the numbers to create the golf shot, whereas the numbers were born out of the golf shot. Ultimately, they're just affirming what's happened, and that's how we use, in my eyes, measuring tools. They're just affirmation and a teaching tool, and we're not using them to influence, if you like, technique in an explicit way. Oh, you need to do this more, you need to do that to get the 2 to 3 in or 2 to 3 out. So, I mean, there's no right or wrong way of using it. There's just different ways. But this was a fantastic, and it was a research paper from a long time ago. So there's been subsequent papers since on this kind of thing, multiple papers on focus of attention and knowledge of results and feedback loops. So it was really interesting. And if you've not had a chance, I'd recommend you go on my Insta and have a look. It's on my IGTV. So it's on my IGTV from this morning, and it's well worth a watch. Just talking about coaching pedagogy, really, about using more of an ecological approach. But then, as you know from the coaching, we look at it from an awareness point of view, where we start to, let's have a look at the questions, what we got. Do you have any general putting tips? JT with the upset on Westwood yesterday. I'm going to get a bit closer and let's have a look at what's going on. Hi, Marcus. Do you think about where the ball is going, or do you just tend to hit the ball to the target intended? It's not about me, it's about you. And it's about trying different approaches, but probably looking at the journey the ball needs to take. So again, this morning's IGTV, coupled with Marcus, will answer all those questions from a putting perspective, but that is applicable to everything. Let's have a look. When on the GRFI board, I can swing relaxed and free with the club in one hand, but tense up when put two hands on. Any thoughts? Okay, so I would then go to hitting golf balls two-handed on the GRFI board. So that's what I'd do, Graham. So go to put it into practice. I tee the ball up, half swings, and you'll start to recognise how you're cueing your movement for that fluid swing. You'll start to recognise what are the determinant variables for a fluid swing. They will start to emerge, and it's about you recognising, not thinking about how you're doing it, thinking about what's happening. What are you recognising and sensing? Not how, it's what's happening, and becoming more observant of you doing the exercise as opposed to you trying to create and move to achieve the exercise. I always thought putting was about feel and touch. It is, yeah. It is. And that's what the essence of the exercise was about, to actually show that with this measurement that Helen was giving me, it actually was of depth when I could actually just see the shot. My feet still hurt from them spiky balls. I brought them tonight. Hey fella, good to see you back on again but you've started right in the middle of catchphrase. I do look a bit like Mr. Chips, I suppose. Marcus, have you looked into Quiet Eye? Yeah, Quiet Eye with the Vickers work. That's been around a long time, and it's good. Definitely quite in that focus of attention. There's a couple of exercises. I'll do something on that tonight, actually. Hi Marcus, I have a lesson booked with Sam in May. Any suggestions for stuff to do in advance to get the most from the session? Also check your email so we can get a room at Alston. Alston won't be open until May the 17th. I need to get back to you, Mickey. So they're not going to be, hotels don't open, I don't think, till May the 17th. So unfortunately, we're stuck on that one. Thoughts on using a length of rope for swing training tempo? I won't be using anything apart from your putter. Or unless you're placing string on the floor and doing what I did this morning on the chat, where you're creating an exercise to attune yourself to the capture speed that's needed to hold the putt. So I can't go into too much detail, or I'll just be repeating myself, but just watch the chat from this morning and you'll see it all. Hi Marcus, I made a rocker board. It's worked really well for me. It's changed the path. However, my weight still goes out to my toes. Any thoughts? Okay. So when you starve yourself of a target, your perception of length and line should improve. when I looked at the target, and what you'll find is, like throwing a ball, your focus needs to be on the intention. If you keep your attention focused down here, which is what the screen was doing, my performance was severely inhibited. So I went from being more inhibited to much more responsive to the actual needs of the putt when I could see the putt and when I was just looking at the putt and not even thinking about the action. So I did the opposites, Jared. I went from just letting the putter just react, and performance went like that. And that's pretty much in line with most studies. Look, it's not one size fits all. We're all different, and that's why doing something like this, you need a partner. And like I say, you need to watch the video this morning. It was only a put together, just me and Helen, myself and Helen did it. The internal to external, exactly, and intrinsic, extrinsic cues. It was kind of playing around with all that, like you say, shifting your attention, redirecting your attention into whether you feel it's useful or useless. Can you demo the 90% focus on where you want the ball to go rather than at the ground? Use the camera as your target. Show us how much you're looking at the target to walk in and set up. Help me here. Okay. Yeah, Terry, when you see the actual line in your mind. I mean, some people see lines. Tiger didn't see a line. Some people see lines. Some people don't. What we do need to do is we need to see where the ball will. We need to know where the ball, or where we want the ball to go in the hole, because where we're seeing the ball go in the hole, okay, the entry point starts to create a line in, and look, there's more to it than just this green reading. Just the notion of green reading does it a disservice. There's so much more to this. It's like throwing a ball. You don't create a deterministic model for throwing a ball in your mind. You don't purposely go through a protocol of reading the throw, reading the environment, how far is it, you just naturally react. And that's what this morning's session was showing you about, really, about how you can go from being more internally focused with less attention on outcome and actually restricted, so you couldn't actually see the outcome. I was relying on just numbers, so that analytical feedback, and then can I respond to a number? Some people, you find the very good players are so used to using these that they can respond to the numbers because they're so used to it. But the average golfer doesn't have a launch monitor there 8 hours a day every time they're practicing, or it doesn't have that. And is it that beneficial? A lot of golfers played fantastically well without these launch monitors, and they serve a purpose, but it's using it in the right way at the right time and making sure that it's not distracting your attention into a place that is potentially. So are you actually learning about your swing, or are you actually just adding more noise and interference and becoming distracted? And do we become dependent on this information? And then when we go on the golf course, it's not there. We've got to react to nature. So these are really kind of good questions that you have to ask yourself. And I think there's a blend, okay? But it's using it at the right time. So a good question a minute ago. So I've used this in a few of the sessions that I've done before. If you get a ball and just put the ball on the floor and take your putter or a golf club, and then what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pick a spot. Well, first of all, look down at the ball and see how you currently see it, what it appears like to you when you just look down at the ball, and look at it for a second, spend a bit of time looking, and just what you notice, how the ball appears to you. Okay. You can see the dimples, you can see the structure of the ball, if you like. And there's an attachment to this that we have, emotionally, physically, that when we hold it and feel it, we know how this, just by looking at it, it's real. So we know how this feels. There's a perception with all our senses attached to this, or created, sorry, when we just look at it. And we can almost envisage how it's going to feel when we strike it, because we've done it so many times. What I want to do is just see how we can enhance that focus of attention. So I want you to take your putter or your club, and I want you to twist it round, and I want you to pick a spot on the end of the grip. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to look at that spot on the end of the grip, right on the end, and I want you to just make 3 very slow figure 8s. So not using the whole arm, just using your... So keep your eyes on that spot. Don't take them off it. And when you've done those 3, I want you to then change direction. Excuse me. And I want you to go the other way. Nice and smooth. Okay. And now I want you to go much, much quicker. But not too fast that you lose your focus on the end of that grip. But go quicker. That's it. And then the other way. Now I want you to slow back down and go nice and smooth and slow. And I want you to make big figure 8s. So bigger, but really slow and smooth. So it's fluid. Nice and smooth. Big figure 8s, very smooth and slow. And then change direction and let's go the other way. Don't take your eyes off that spot on the end of the grip. It's amazing how you can lose count in just 3. But just following it around, nice and smooth. And then when you've done those 3, take your grip, get a ball, now look down at the ball, and I want you to look at a dimple on the ball. And just have a few seconds looking at that dimple. 10 seconds, it's a long time. And how does that dimple look? Has it changed? Has it changed at all? Has the appearance of the ball changed? It can appear larger, and it can appear brighter, and the dimples can appear bigger. So I would suggest I sped up I sped it up, but I would keep it smooth and just make the 8 bigger and change directions. I'd try it that way. What would you advise kids to... It was bigger, Jared, yeah. What would you advise kids to work on when getting started in golf? I want to get my 11-year-old kid started, but the standard teaching is not that great. Movement skills. Use transfer of learning. Don't get specific to golf. So lots of very dynamic exercises, games, hitting, throwing, but then lots of games that require stillness, calmness, balance, coordination. I put a black dot on the ball, and when I strike the putt, I see the outline of the ball. That's how I know I did it right. There's lots of different ways of doing this. Personally, I would avoid, hi Marcus, do you feel intention is more important than awareness of movement? The two go hand in hand, don't they, Steve? What was I going to talk about? Would you ever use alignments on any other ball? Okay, would it make it any easier? Would it make it any easier, or would it distract you? Imagine snooker, if someone got a marker pen and just put a dot on the ball where they want you to strike the cue ball. Where would that suddenly put your attention? It puts it on the cue ball, but where do we look when we're playing pool or snooker? We look at the object ball. But by having that mark on the ball, it suddenly shifted our attention to the cue ball. So that's now become. Now we're starting to, Richard Jones, take them to a boxing gym, great for hand-eye foot coordination. Yeah, brilliant. And then also calmness, rotation tool. It must be really annoying knowing the golf ball is not the target. Yeah, it is, but it's not. It's the golf shot that's the intention. If our intention is just to hit a ball, then we just be happy hitting the ball, but don't get frustrated. Don't get emotionally attached if it doesn't go where you want it to go, because it's needed to be to achieve your outcome. It's like you want to go for treble 20, but you're just looking at the whole board and just throwing it at the board. It's going to go in treble 20 every now and again. And how many times do we hit that perfect golf shot? Every now and again, once in a while. Okay, driver yips. Okay, so that was last week's lesson. Richard on the last Wednesday night on the yips. We did, again, whether it's putting, chipping, full swing, it transfers through the whole system. We all possess it. It's how aware we are of it. It's how much you recognise it in the system. Rotation tool. I would use the GRFI board. So you can see it at the distance. I'm not doing some shameless advertising. It's the hardware to the software. It's what I talked about this morning. It's all about how to distract the mind to the target. Yeah, direct. I wouldn't say distract, because distract, the language we use. Thanks, Jared. Yeah, it was a massive transformation with Richard. It was awesome. And that was where we needed to go to enable the full swing to free up. Often it's not the place where you think you need to go. Everything's connected to everything. Everything reacts to everything. And you don't need to go direct to the source. Think about pain. Do you often go direct to the source of pain? The pain's normally a result of issues in other parts of the body. So the GRFI system is providing that opportunity to explore. And like I said this morning, check them out, Insta guys, IGTV, explained a lot. But basically, it's very difficult to coach this online. So, but what we've got now is we've got the hardware which provides that medium from where we can share the experience, and I can guide that journey now. So I'm going to be offering group online. Anybody who has a GRFI board will be, as an owner of a GRFI system, will be invited into a group where you get time. I can support you, familiarise you with the system and get you used to the exercises, but more importantly, find the ones that are most suitable and specific for your needs. And that's the important thing. For your needs, finding out the right one. So you'll go through the learnscape, go through the whole journey, and you'll identify it yourself, but I can help support that now. Whereas, I mean, you'll have seen me do a couple of videos online, but you can see it's a difficult medium to translate information. A lot can get lost. It just means now less gets lost. Where do you think the traditional ways of teaching came from? After watching your teaching, it seems so unnatural. Yeah, I don't want to go to that conversation because I don't want to get too controversial. Having a few putts, just realised my attention has been on the putter head rather than the ball and the line when standing over the ball. Yeah, that's good now. So by doing that exercise, the ball looks different and suddenly you recognise where your attention is. So these awareness exercises start to enable us to become more self-aware and start to recognise our own movement patterns and behaviour. And then once we recognise it, now we can start to change it. But we can change it, we can recognise change, should I say. But we evoke that change by shifting our awareness and i.e. attention in this case towards the intention, and we change the intention. We shift the challenge point. We're continually moving the challenge point up and down. Okay. You will very quickly disengage with a challenge if it's too easy. Likewise, you'll disengage if it's too hard. And a lot of us are on the range and we're not finding that right challenge point for us. So we disengage and then we don't become immersed. We're not affording ourselves that opportunity to learn because the environment's not right. And that's all mindset driven. Mindset enables the skill set to adapt. Just throw the club, yeah. I want to talk a little bit about tonight then. Let's talk, someone talked about grip there, Brady. James, yeah, the old aim small, miss small. I don't know about that. I think it works for some. So let's just talk about, I'm going to move the camera, move this, we're going to get set up down the line a little bit so you can see some shots, see some full swing stuff. Because that was really just to touch on what we did this morning, and it's a really interesting video this morning. And it brought back a lot, to be honest, of my own study from, God, over 10 years ago. And about practical applications from research study on focus of attention. So attentional exercises, learning what do you respond to best. It's a blend of everything. And we need all that stimulus and let the body react to that stimulus in its own way. Try not to deprive yourself of the stimulus that you need, and try not to deliberately focus on something that is now essentially a bias that you've created in your belief system because you believe it to have value and worth because maybe someone's told you about it. What would putting a line on the ball do in any other sport? It would attract your attention to that place. Now, is that helping? Or is that potentially interfering? Do you need to have a line on the ball and react with your movement to the amount of curvature that you're seeing and the speed it's travelling and where it's going, moving from and to? By looking at that cross or line on the ball where you need to hit it, or the cue ball, you're focused on that ball and not on the intention. So that could potentially create more noise. distortion. And that's when you start going down the route of looking at your technique more, because it's not performing. So you think my technique's not right. So now I've got to improve my technique. So now you become more internally focused. And now you're going down the plug hole. Okay. So people need to see where the eyes are pre-shot, walking into the shot and saying, look, it helped me huge. Not Hugh. Yeah, there was a video that I talked about, and we showed a lot of the top players. I think it was Stenson on it, Mickelson, Tiger, a few other players, and watching their behaviour. When you watch golf on TV, don't just watch the swings, watch what they're doing. If they don't just cut to the swing, if they're there on the tee waiting, watch their behaviour on the tee. What are they looking at? What are they doing with the club? When do they actually start swinging? When do they make a practice swing? How do they waggle it? How do they hold it? One hand, two hand. Do they switch hands? You'll often see them switching hands, making a swing. They'll walk in, maybe holding it with one hand, then go to two. I mean, you're going to see lots of variations, but you're going to see they are just starting to react to the shot they're picturing. And they've got all their own kind of idiosyncrasies. When you miss a putt, don't look away, watch what happens exactly, especially if you pass the hole, otherwise you're going to miss the line back. Exactly, Ryan, great point. Talked about that this morning. Thoughts on true release point, Marcus? So we're starting to get into, this is where you can start to see people's narratives that they play golf by and the language that is connected to that. Triggers, yeah, shake and bake triggers. We all have our own triggers. We often don't even realise what they are. Once they become conscious, now you're trying to trigger something. So now the trigger is to try and create the trigger. More noise. You don't need triggers to create triggers. The trigger's already there. It's like they're innate. This is a primitive action. It's a reflex. So, and it's so. Let's move the camera. And I'm gonna have to move a bit of stuff about, so you'll have to bear with me, guys. Did you see my last live session, guys? When we talked about centre of mass. So no trusty assistant this evening, not like this morning. So we're going to get So I'm getting asked a lot about the boards. See the relic, the becoming extinct species now, almost last of a dying breed. So this has served me very well, as you know. First ball back, John. Wow, tomorrow I'm forever hitting the ball behind the ball, even with it in the centre of my stance. I also have the ball slightly forward of centre, hit all lines from the same place. So, this is an evolution. Now you're going to see a lot of boards like this, but the GRF is different. And if you are thinking of getting one, guys, this is the new one. This is the one you get, and it's rails. And this is very different. And this is the message I need to convey, because people are asking me. Nobody's ever created, and this is copyrighted and registered, nobody's ever created a board with rails, okay? And this is where my research took me to. I've been using one of these for a long time, but if you think about it, it's tipping. It's on a fulcrum. Gesundheit, thank you. So, it's on a fulcrum. That means it's falling at some point. That means your mass is falling. Or you're physically not making the board work. So, we're in free fall. That's a different reaction to the body. Now, these tolerances are much smaller. I mean, this is not on a grand scale. It's small movements, but but these are very, very important variables. It's an important feedback loop. It's an important level of awareness, a very heightened level of awareness that we're creating. When you've got rails, it's always in contact with the ground. So we're always working against the friction of the ground. So we are working. We are having to move pressure. We are forced to move it. Now, we can still move mass, but it is more difficult. It's the pressure that's moving the mass. And it's that's going to help tap you into these effortless, free-flowing swings when the pressure moves, not so much your centre of mass. And this is what the board does. It attunes you to these forces, the directional components too, and the tolerances. You're having to do the work, so you are creating a feedback loop. If you're in free fall, sometimes, imagine if your body's in free fall, what does it do? It tightens up. So you might get a nervous system response. If you're just shifting and swaying, okay, and the board's tipping, you might get that, you'll get used to the banging and the momentum, but you're in free fall. It's not the same as having to make the board work. So, and you don't want your central gravity too high. So, what you also get is you get the pressure domes, so you can help map so it's going to help you create a level of awareness where you can map the pressure. You understand where pressure needs to move in order to achieve the movement of the board and create these functions. In essence, that's where we were this morning with the putting, and this is just a physical version with the full swing, creating
sensory feedback loops. And it's a language now that we can talk. We're on the same page. Is the pressure movement different from the old board in comparison to the new one? Yes. As I'm saying, the old board is a tipping action. Okay, this is a pushing action. You can tip it, of course, but it's hard. It's not. You'll feel it because you're in contact with the ground all the time. It's not just rocking like a seesaw. Does it twist as much? No, because we've got rails which provide. They're in contact with the floor all the time, so there's more resistance to torque in that, and there's rubber strips. So essentially, there's a tolerance that you can feel. So yes, it will twist if there's excessive forces, but you can feel that now. Whereas before it could spin out. It was very, very sensitive, and you were falling as well as it was happening. So it was a spinning top, essentially. Now it feels like, it's not an infomercial, this. It's just because I'm so passionate. This is born out of the coaching. This is not. I didn't design this to sell hardware. This was just born out of the coaching to make the coaching more effective, and also it creates a language we all understand when we're all using it. When you're in your home and I'm here, we can converse and we're on the same page. We understand each other. Less gets lost, like I say, in translation, and I can help guide you through the exercises, and we can fine tune them, and we can start to explore other adaptations of those exercises, which are more for you specifically, so it can meet your individual needs. So yeah, it's designed specifically. This is where the last 12 years of research have taken me. Nobody had ever, one, put rails on, two, put discs on. To put discs, rotating discs on here, and now attune you to the timing of those forces. And you'll see I've been doing it for a long time, but it's really born out of the research from the last 12 years that's brought me to this place. So I just want to share it, as you can see. And it's all locally sourced and produced in Nottingham. It's manufactured locally, so we're not mass producing from China. That's not what we're about. We're about premium products which are going to help get that message and help you get the best experience to help you improve as quick as possible and enjoy this game as much as possible. So you get this, you get a pressure guide as well. You're going to get, there's exercises on the LearnScape that I'll take you through. You get the pressure guide. It shows you how to explore where you can move your pressure to get the maximum efficiency out of your movement. And create those most effective movement patterns, and you'll recognize it at the end of the chain because the release just feels different and the whole ease of swing feels different. So for example, I'm physically having to move this board, whereas the other board would tip. Now, if we take my combined centre of mass, it's roughly about, it's within the lower torso, okay? I've got a bit of a lockdown belly, so my centre of mass is probably a bit further forward, okay? We can either just move that mass, so if this is my mass, I can either just move my mass to rock the board, or I can use my pressure. So my mass isn't really moving, but if I was on the pressure plate, that would be going bonkers now. It'd be going bananas from side to side to side to side, bang, 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 lots of pressure. Centre of mass is not moving much. When we move pressure quickly and a long distance in the right way, so the directional components are all optimal, we create a big moment arm between our centre of mass and the application, point of application of the pressure, the vertical force. And this helps us create torque. It helps create that kinematic sequence they all talk about. If you watch my Bryson videos the other week about the lower body, how we optimize the lower body, and then how that translated into upper body sequencing from the pelvis, this is providing the forces for the whole system to use, but particularly firing the pelvis. That is your powerhouse. The pelvis is the powerhouse. That's the engine. Bang! That's fired by the hips. Lower back's involved. Hips, ankles. The forces that we're creating from the ground are influencing this whole system. And the board enables you to play around with all the tolerances of these forces. It's making you do the work. This was brilliant, but it's an evolution. And I wouldn't want this to happen where you get to a point, probably 10, 15, 20 minutes in, and you go, I wish I'd bought the board. I wish I'd bought the GRF system, because that's got all the components, and that makes sense now. Because the download's brilliant, and it's £200. We're going to be selling it privately for people. If you've already made one and you're happy with it, great. But you might find you get through the download and you think, I wish I'd bought the actual system, because it's only other for UK customers and only another 70 quid, or whatever your duty is. It's 225 plus tax. So wherever you are in the world, it's whatever you do. It's 25 quid plus the duty and shipping. So for that extra cost, it's actually worth getting the whole system, and then you've got all the components and accessories, and you can start to use the right configurations for you, as opposed to compromising. And it's an evil. At the end of the day, it's less than the price of the driver. So, but anyway, less of my Del Boy trying to sell that, because I'm not. I'm just so enthusiastic and emotional about it, because it took me years to get to this point, and all the exercises are unique. So the exercise I'm showing you haven't been done before. Yes, people have tipped on a board before, back and through, but not in the heel-toe direction, although people have copied since. But that my analysis, my research on lower body gait analysis and studies I've conducted over the last 10, 12 years, big studies in the last couple of years, well, last 4 years, enable me to configure the board in a way that's helping you the most to tap into these natural forces, these primitive actions, and the unique drills with the discs on, with the board heel to toe, using a rotation disc, using a balance disc in conjunction with it. These are really, really powerful exercises, but you need the understanding, you need the rationale behind it. You get it all in the download. You get all the core fundamentals. So from a student perspective, not a coach's perspective, there's information there which a coach will which will resonate with the coaches, and they'll understand exactly where I'm coming from. But there's not all the rationale we could go in, otherwise it would be hours and hours of theory. We want it practical, we want it to be useful there and then. And you want to see change and feel change, more importantly, so you can reproduce, you know where to go, it's a map. Someone said hit a draw. What we'll do is we will get the screen. A minute ago someone left a message, hitting behind the ball. Would this help my stiff lower back? Yeah. You're going to see in this week's video. How do you buy? Links in the description on all the YouTube videos. So I put it on the last one. Have a look, James. I'll put it on this one at the end of it. We've put a new pre-order out. There's a 4 to 6 week delivery time, because we're making to order. And with all the COVID and things like that, have just limited some supply. But yeah, I struggle with back pain. The psoas muscle, all right, I carry a lot of speed and think I'd benefit from seeing you. Yeah, I mean, some of the guys have been, and we've released that psoas, and there's I do one with Gareth. So that was further, that's on my channel, not Robin's, and Gareth and Nicola, and we talk about that. Yeah, that's we go into full lower body mechanics with that, and look at the chains, and look at that thoracic, pelvis and femur, lower and shank movement, lower limb. So we're starting to look at how that's reacted, and looking at how the pelvis and the thoracic separate, and what the psoas is doing, and how we can relax that. And he felt, as always happens, quite an emotional reaction to stretching that, because it's a muscle some people have never stretched, and it's very closely connected to your organs. Does 4 to 6 weeks only apply moving forward is the most recent? Yeah, we are streamlining the production process, and it's a lot easier to get the supplies now. So that will shrink that delivery time. We are doing our best, guys. I'll buy the spare one you have behind you, James. It's going up in price, mate. How do I stop swaying when I try to move my weight to my right heel? Okay. I'm 6'4", hit the ball thin all the time. Is it because of my swing or because I use stock off the shelf clubs? The chain, yes, Jared. What have I missed, Danny? What have you missed? You've been at the dentist. That doesn't sound too good. What does the pressure? I hope it wasn't extractions. What does the pressure guide do? I have ordered the board and the weight shipment. So the pressure guide is an indicator for you to explore shifting your pressure. If you just move your pressure heel to toe, okay, straight through the joint centre, okay, you get movement that way. If it's a little bit to the side, you might get a little bit of inversion, eversion, a bit of pronation, potentially supination, depending where it is. We need pressure moves through the foot, okay, and it's not a heel to toe. It is moving to the rear foot and then through the midfoot to the forefoot, but it's not moving in a linear fashion. So you will feel this when you go on the board. The pressure domes are going to be an absolute eye-opener for you. And then the directional guide will, when you start to use it in certain configurations to produce these power moves, you're going to know exactly where to go with your pressure and how you load into the floor and then unload. You can see how excited I am about it. Sleepless nights. I don't sleep. I'm just thinking about GRF board all the time. My missus is sick of me. I talk about it in my sleep. Can you fix Charles Barkley's swing? If you should, look at, I mean, people have tried, but you know what? They've probably tried by giving him more information. It's the opposite he needs. But how do you do that? You tell me. Great info all the time, thank you. How about some putting tips on future videos? Yeah, longer clubs at your height would help. Definitely Scott for the 6'4", for Braden. When is the second pre-order out? Very soon. Cool. So, can I have a board and have it sent to Canterbury? I'm not going there. I don't mean I'm not going to Canterbury, I mean I'm not going there. So, if you can see that, that's green ball, centre of mass. Doesn't need to move much, but this board is going like the clappers, left and right. Okay, I can move this to move the board. And this can go, my mass, which is actually in here, can go forward, back, side to side, up and down, and it rotates as well in all these directions. So I used the swivel chair on Friday night. If you've not seen a few connection issues, sorry guys, that's what this movement of pressure is creating. So what I want to talk about, I want to go right to the other end of the chain. Put it there. So, if hands are flippy at impact, even though it feels like I can feel the forces and swing from the ground up, is most likely caused by bad intention or issue with ground usage. Okay. Right, guys. Let's get this show on the road, eh? This is, so I've got a lie. If I make a decision of making a draw fade after a few hours, I get more insecure and go back to hitting straight balls. Okay, here's my fly tool. The old trusty alignment stick, if you can see it, on the floor. And when I set up, notice that the sweet spot isn't pointing, even though that leading edge is square. Notice it's called the D plane. I can bring it more in line of the start of the target line. Now the target line, as we know, can create big issues. Okay. So, how do we get this pointing to the right to start the ball right to draw the ball back? Because this has got to be right of the target line and the path's got to be further right. Now, if you're setting up and hitting the ball, if you're setting up with a square leading edge and hitting the ball and you've got no shaft lean at impact, you've got a sweet spot that's pointing left. If you're letting the club head pass your hands, it's going obviously further left because now you've got the club face rotating. But if we steepen the shaft, suddenly it squares up. But that brings the toe down, okay? And that's creating, potentially, in order to move the hands further away, that then steepens, creates a steeper angle of attack, but it enables you to get some kind of functional face to start the ball kind of in the right direction. Because if that club face is pointing left, and you make a great swing, you're going to hit a ball that either starts left and draws or goes straight left. Probably, if we want to hit a draw, it's going to be a big pull draw. So what does your body do? It's got to change the path somehow. It's got to change the path to be able to create a functional shape. And what do? We end up with a fade or a slice. So you can change your swing path into out, but if you try a fade or draw the ball, will literally just go straight. Okay, so what you're doing, Scott, there is your club face. Okay. Your club face, if that's your path, that's the direction the club's swinging, that's your club face, they're matching up. So they're matching up. Okay, to either left or to the right. This is something I see a lot of. I see a lot of people who are swinging in the direction they intend the ball to go. But it's the club face that influences where the ball goes, and that's rotating, and that's travelling very quick, far quicker than you can consciously manipulate, unless you start trying to slow things down. That's more a reaction to your intention, and what the shape of the golf swing is doing essentially is very much linked to the shape of the golf shot, because that's more of the path. Because the direction you're swinging and the angle of attack create the path. So it's about sequencing. Because we want effortless power. So as we swing, I mean, you can see where this is moving around. It's kind of, when we talk about club face control, we don't want to be thinking about controlling this as and thinking of this as a stable segment. This is very much, the wrists aren't stable in a golf swing. They're moving. They're dynamic. It's dynamic. This is a mobile joint. It's the elbow that's stable and the shoulder's mobile. That's the mobile. That's the stability pattern. If we're trying to make this a stable joint, suddenly now we're creating a big lever. talked about that in the little reel that I made about keeping your left arm straight that went out earlier tonight. So suddenly now we've got this rigidity in this lever, and we're trying to control this, which ultimately is going to be uncontrollable because as it speeds up, you've got a free hinge here. The only way this stabilises is when everything else is more mobile. So when this shoulder is moving, i.e. the torso is moving, and this is behind you, this is reacting, the wrist is reacting, and it's all based around the perception of the golf shot and an awareness of your movement. And that's where the ground reaction forces come in to help create those big forces that we need to fire that sequence. So if you're finding that you've got a weak strike or you're struggling, notice I'm still going to be talking about, it's going to evolve, of course, but the philosophy is good, and the use of the ground, the understanding of the sequencing. Okay, these are things you'll see that it's a continual theme throughout my lessons. No matter how far you go back, the theme is the same. There's no trends. It's not a stack until Pete Cowan, Mac O'Grady, whatever, from one week to the next, moving around, then it's a flowing swing, then it's take your mind off it, then it's now you've got to think about where the club face is, now you've got to think about where the wrists are, got to move away together. So throwing an explicit based lesson into the mix, straight after an implicit, or before it, or vice versa, you'll see the narrative is always the same. So it's a consistent theme all the time, but the way we employ that will change naturally. Coaching evolves already. From when I used the footboard initially, it's changed. Okay, so but what we know is that when we're creating those mobility stability patterns and we're using that stretch reflex, that elastic, letting the elastic band go, the TheraBand go, the mass of the club is behind, this trails, it's reacting, and providing we use the right sequence, i.e. we decelerate and accelerate at the right time, so the body stops and lets this go, but we're still moving. We don't stop the body and then this carries on, you are still rotating. Maybe you're stopping. Maybe we're stopping, we're hitting the golf ball and stopping. Instead of, if you were throwing a ball, the body doesn't stop. Yes, it decelerates, and I talk about that in the LearnScape, brake to accelerate. But you are braking, you've not stopped. You put the brakes on and there's the whiplash effect through the system, but you're still moving. And at this end of the chain, particularly this lever system, okay, from the spine to the shoulder to the arm to the club, this is essentially a lever here, bang. We're timing that lever system. If this goes too early, that's when you've got all your problems. Much later, and that's when you'll see the results in the lessons, how the swing suddenly changes and goes a lot more effortless, and the sequence is there, and people can feel the club head, and they're feeling everything, but that's just because we've elevated that level of awareness into a place where now the system's more sensitive and you can really sense change. If you can sense change, you can affect change. That dial. Does that make sense, guys? So if my path is starting to the ball right of target, is it just my wrist that needs to close the face at impact? It's the whole system, guys. Yeah, can I divulge any more information on the physical exercise kit? That's in the pipeline. I'm compiling that. That is super exciting. You are going to be like superhumans. You're all going to be Avengers by the time you finish that training. You're going to be like Zen X-Men. Okay, right. We're gonna put to bed. I'm not gonna swear early extension. Okay, I'm gonna tuck it open, put it in bed, and we're gonna keep it in there, and I might even knock it out. Okay, so. I need a wee dram talking about that. I need a bit of me Irish coffee. Please, no more shit about early extension. Right. We're going to talk about the sequencing. I was only joking, by the way, about the early extension thing. Kind of. So, we need that down. Will the board also help with short game? Yeah. If you look at my cuppa with Marcus, again, guys, get on the Insta, IGTV. I did some short game stuff on it. Just little bits, just a bit of an introduction, just talking about shift of pressure. Do we want mass shifting a lot in chipping? It's going to move a bit for momentum. Okay, because like throwing a ball, you're going to move. But what's moving the mass? Pressure. The board attunes to the pressure shifts to move the mass, to create the momentum, to attune you to the timing of the swinging of the arm and the release. Because this is all momentum. It's all momentum based. But what's at the heart of that momentum? Where are the 4 places on the board for the discs? Why are there 4? There's 5. So this is for the disc, so you can have a wide stance or a narrower stance, so for chipping, full swing. The one in the middle is for when you use it in this direction, and we use the pressure domes, and then we put the directional guide on. So we start to use it for heightening your level of awareness from the ground up. You'll start to create reference points and start to really feel how the pressure moves through your feet. And how much pressure you are applying, the magnitude of it. It switches the sensors on and you start to feel the patterns emerge from that. Any ideas? Can you talk about early extension? I'm sure you're trying to wind me up. Right. So I'm going to use these furniture sliders. Now, if you ever see anybody using these for movement, switch off. So you'll see people sliding back, and what they're trying to do is, yes, they're trying to create a push, but it doesn't work like that. You try pushing back. The way that the hip complex, the way that I'm rotating to the right. Crazy stuff, crazy stuff. But notice my centre of mass. If we were, let me know if you can see me, guys. It's better if I don't have to keep bending down, so I'm going to go down here. There's my centre of mass. Okay, I can move forward and back, and this centre of mass is not moving. Yeah, but I'm rotating. So I'm applying pressure forward and back. Please do not confuse this with heel-toe, which is what you might see. This is hip movement. I've got no friction with the ground, so this is not me using friction, using ground reaction force. I'm just using shear force, because that's a horizontal force along the ground. Very little friction. I'm moving that way. not using vertical force, and that's coming from the hip motion. Okay, so I'm driving my movement here from the hips. I'm not really training my body to use the ground. I'm using my hips. Now, yes, when we bring the friction of the ground in, the feet do react and we do create the chain. But what I'm doing here is I'm creating counter movements to what I'm actually going to be doing. But notice, if I want to rotate, if I was trying to push to the right, if I was trying to swing to the right, you get this action with the ground, but it's equal and opposites. My feet won't really do this with the ground. I'm actually going the other way. But I don't need to use sliders to sense that. Otherwise, I'm creating dysfunctional hip movement for an intended golf swing. I'm not recognising any movement maps that are required for a golf swing here. There's no patterns I'm just sliding. But notice I can rotate and my mass doesn't move. If both feet go forward, whoa, extension. Both feet go back, flexion. But if I slide my feet, my mass, bit of MJ, moonwalking, mass is not moving. Okay? Otherwise I'd be moving, I'd be walking. But there's no friction. Okay, I'm just using that as a pointless exercise, by the way. Because although it can help attune you to the equal and opposites, you will start to feel the patterns, but is it really representational? But you can see if I want to rotate back, okay, that does need to go back, that needs to go forward. But when people are using these sliders, they generally use them this way. That goes back in the downswing. That's not a very functional pattern because you've got a counter rotation. That for the backswing would be more understandable, but we're moving the hip into a big extension. And I'm flexing, I'm tipping forward. It's not representational of a golf swing. All I'm showing you is that if we go forward and back, this doesn't move too much, okay? Bring the board in. Rotational disc under the left foot. Centre of mass. When you bend forward, it moves forward. If I was like this, my centre of mass is out here now. Okay? Because your centre of mass is going to move outside. It's like the Frosby flop. How people rotate. So you move your centre of mass outside of your body and then you create rotation around that. So you've got a natural rotation. What you'll see is when in a golf swing, the golfers flex forward, the centre of mass is moving forward, it's easier now to rotate around it. If you move this centre of mass forward back with your body, now you can't rotate. If you bend forward, the centre of mass moves forward, you can rotate around it. So you'll see the top players with lots of side bend. Centre of mass is forward, you can rotate around it. If you use the board under the right foot, rotation disc under the left, you're creating the propulsion mechanics, you're sensing the rotation, then you're essentially engaging these patterns and entering into quite big ranges to enhance your awareness of these patterns. So you're actually experiencing the patterns that we're going to use in a golf swing, a version of them which is representative, which creates an embedded in respect of friction to help you create these patterns with even more power and more control, and i.e. more timing. You can time when you do it. Sliding along the ground may create these forces in some sense when you go back, but you're just creating more distortion in the map. These are movements that just do not correlate to the golf swing. Because as soon as you go to turn the power on, the right foot's going to slide back, left foot slides forward to counter rotate for balance, and now you've got the hips working in the opposite direction. Complete garbage. for creating sensory awareness, not for biomechanics. So if you're a biomechanist, that makes complete sense. I understand that that kind of exercise could be applied so that when you go back to the ground, you create the counter movements. But for the average golfer, we're trying to make the game easier. We want to allow the person to explore and develop an understanding for their movement. Create these very memorable movements which actually have meaning, which are powerful, and that you can elaborate on and elaborate further, should I say, and develop a repertoire, i.e. confidence in how you move and express yourself. But fundamentally, these are efficient. Does that all make sense, guys? Skating on Zen. Pressure down. If you want to take it to the next level, you use the pressure dome. When you put your foot on that, this will be in the midfoot. You might have seen me use the teaspoons on the couple with Marcus. It's a version of this. It's an introduction. This is the daddy. That goes in the midfoot. Now, these flexions and extensions and, excuse me, all these joint articulations that are going to allow you to use the ground. You're going to feel how your pressure moves to load and unload the body. When you put the directional guide on as well, you can start to use an external cue to shift that pressure in different areas. And you've got this very, very, if you like, intense haptic feedback loop. This is super sensory that you're getting back through intention of moving the board, i.e. with pressure, understanding how that creates the patterns that you can start to use because you're swinging a golf club as you're doing it. We're not isolating movements here. We might be shifting your attention into a certain place for a while and then moving it away, but we're always operating as an integrated system. We're just shifting our attention to certain places whilst we're doing it and then move it back again. It's always, and then it all loops back into a golf shot. It's always around the intention of a golf shot, but you'll very quickly be able to adapt your golf swing because when your patterns are efficient and your sequencing efficient, it adapts very easily and sensitively too to the shot you want to hit. So everything you've been talking about tonight is sequence based, and underpinning that are the ground reaction forces that this bad boy can help you attune yourself to, because it's making you work. And it's that challenge point that I talked about earlier with the putting. It's finding the right challenge point. That's ultimately what this LearnScape will show you. Plyometric movement, exactly. Welcome to the pressure dome. I'm going to have to coin that, Max 360, I'm having that. Hashtag welcome to the pressure dome, mate. I hope, will you let me have that? I'll even trademark it for you. I'll say my inspiration is from Max 360. Love it. Guys, does this all make sense? I've gone off on a tangent as I normally do. No probs. Cheers, mate. Welcome to the pressure dome. I love that kind of thinking. Right. So I hope you've all bought one of them. So basically we know who's received the boards. When you've received the board, you've got your download already. You will start getting invited into the online session, and we'll do that. We'll do the online session. I'll be in here with my board. You'll be there, and it won't be boring, that's for sure. And you can fire your questions at me, and we can fine-tune your process. What I need you to do is I need you to have gone through the whole LearnScape, and more than once. I'm sure you do that anyway. And don't skip the instructions. Don't be the normal bloke that we always are, and we go straight, we put the TV on, switch it on, and then we start fiddling around with the old remote, and it's like, what's this do, what's that do? And it just leads to frustration. Go through the whole download. Can you download, can it be sent to your wife's email? Yes. Where do I buy the pressure boards? How much for a pressure dome? These are a particular, they're a particular material and a particular size. And there's two sizes. And there's two sizes for a very good reason. And I'll talk to you about that in the download. Yes, it makes perfect sense. For the first time ever, golf is starting to make sense and enjoyable. Thank you, fella. You're welcome, mate. You can't believe how happy that makes me feel. We're doing better, guys, but when everyone wants to smash the buttons, come on, this is free. When everything else fails, read the instructions. Exactly, Keith. Who do I contact, Marcus, of getting it sent to my wife's email? GRF, zengrfinfinity@gmail.com. So that's all lowercase, zengrfinfinity@gmail.com, and the team will get back to you, Jared, and make sure that your good lady receives that download. It's one of the team. So Sam, is there a special price when buying a JRF board during a lesson? Asking for a friend, Dean. There is going to be a 10% discount for buying on the day. You make it very clear and natural. Where it's like, let's get on that golf course. But we're going to be very zen about it. We're going to take it all in our stride and be at one with it. Did you listen to the IGTV, the Insta chat last Monday with Mark Nesty and Alex Bell? A lot of people were saying it was the best one. Are the group sessions going to be around this time? Excuse me, yeah. But it will be recorded. And we'll send you a link to that recording. Will you be on YouTube? Don't do Facebook. Yeah, it could probably be a YouTube channel. Most people are on YouTube, I think. Hi, Mark. I'm Have from Spain. Sadly, to my GRF coming in a few weeks. Is there any excited to do the GRF to improve putting all fairway bunker shots? Thank you. Great work. Yeah, loads of stuff to do with putting on. It's not on the download though. So that'll be in our private sessions. And then I'll create another download for the chipping and the putting. I've got so much good stuff to come with putting. Zen Putting Mechanics is an absolute game changer for you. That's how I got into. That was my entry into this philosophy with Nick at Zen. And then it was my remit to grow Zen as the director of coaching, to grow the full swing and all the other elements based on the Zen philosophy, which was and the Zen Putting Mechanics system was born out of that philosophy. Got to get it on the green first, Jeff. So, Jared, is there anything on GRF to help lower spin on the driver? It's sequencing, mate. So we talked about how this transfers the speed to the golf club, but it's the timing of that lever, of this, and it's the energy that you're actually, it's actually, okay, the kinetic energy that's transferring across the joints through the body. It's a kinetic sequence. And it's the timing of this energy that you are transferring across these joints and the magnitude, but energy transfers, and it's that's creating this. If the energy is not transferring at the right time across the joints, you're going to get a reaction at the end of the chain because that's got to go. It's when you're doing it. So I just need to slow my tempo down. No, you probably need to do the opposite, Jared, but you need to do it from the right place. It needs to be coming from the pelvis. Remember I talked about the pelvis as being the powerhouse? Boom, that's got to go. If you watch the video, if you've not seen them, watch the two videos from a couple of weeks ago when I did Find Your Bryson move, and then on the Friday night I did the sequencing, 3D kinematics, about the stretching, how you create the stretch in the downswing. It's not the backswing, it's the downswing where you're creating the stretch. It's like throwing, everything moves back and now you create the stretch. That's as you change direction and then you're moving into stretch and then you get the recoil, and that allows you to transfer that energy through these segments into the golf club. But the golf club is trailing, and what essentially now it's the torques you're putting onto the grit, onto the handle, but it's all created through these joint interactions. Make it sequencing. I would say find your timing from the ground and attune that to the timing of the club head and try and separate those. Use the ground earlier, let the club react later. Then you're going to find the release is later, which is what happens in the lessons generally. And you've now got that club face control. You've got the loft going down as opposed to the loft going up. So you've got a club face that is rotating. It's always closing. It's not opening and then closing. It might open as you it might be starting to shift in transition, but it's closing. It's closing. It's just the rate of closure and when you close it. Even if you're slicing, it will be closing, just not at the right rate. Because unless you are like this at the top of your golf swing, and then it's still going to be closing somewhat. The feeling of Zen greatness, and what a fantastic feeling. Thanks to Marcus, and I just need to validate on the course. Max, thank you, mate. I really appreciate it. Craig, had to learn to swing again because of a disability. This approach makes more sense than trying to reach positions. That's David. Craig, really feel like I'm swinging better, but as soon as I had a club when the board, it starts twisting again. Any advice? So you're starting to sequence from the top. So you'll see that. So if you get the twist, the dreaded twist is harder on this board. You'll find it's a lot harder because it's rubber and it's rails, more friction, but it's twisting. So I need to sequence this way. So we'd use the pressure domes. Where's my pressure domes gone? Here they are. That's your pressure directional guide. These are the domes. It's all magnetised, so you're not going to lose stuff. Now you can feel the timing of when you are, where you're moving the pressure, the timing of it to move the board. Remember, this is the difference between the old board. If I bring the old board in, I do love it, but it is a bit of a relic now, a bit of a fossil. Look, it's already, I'm rocking. I can just move my feet, but there's a tipping. I'm not really feeling any work. It's just free falling. So I'm not really applying pressure to the ground because my foot is in the air. It's just free falling. Whereas when I'm on the rail, I'm always pushing against the ground. That's the big difference. Centre of mass, rocking. I can use this, but my feet are just falling. Here now, centre of mass, bang. Use the board. Fine, now you'll feel where the pressure's moving through the feet to push and bang the board. And you'll feel exactly where it is. I've placed the pressure domes right in the centre of the midfoot, through the centre, and now you can feel how the pressure meanders through the foot to create that propulsion. It's not just heel to toe. If it was heel to toe, my ankles and knees would be moving. It would be linear. The foot needs to pronate and supinate to allow you to flex and extend. Moving just in the sagittal plane, heel to toe, ain't going to do the job. You're even going to get, if you do a squat, okay, even if you keep your knees and your ankles in line and you squat, okay, you will internally rotate, you will pronate, and then you will start to extend and supinate. So pressure's always moving in and out and round and back and forward. You're going to feel it with these. You're going to feel the timing of where the pressure is here and where the pressure's there. Instantaneously, feeling both feet. Bang, bang, bang. Look at that, stable. Now, then we can start to move it a bit more. If I want to extend more, no problem. Or do I extend like this? Do I move like this? And that's going to, I can't really extend. Shifting mass is going to probably keep you more in flexion unless you go forward. But it's harder to rotate now. Mass forward, easier to rotate. This way, because we're going this way to the ball. Centre of mass shifts forward, we're rotating around it. It's like the Frosby flop. We're rotating around the centre of mass, around it. This torso is now rotating a lot easier to swing the arms in the direction we want. Is there a link for the board? It's on all the previous videos. I'll post it on this one tonight, but they might all be gone. So, because we're having to limit the amount we can pre-order, because purely we want to fulfill those pre-orders. And we're only a small business, guys. And I've got an amazing team that's growing, and the production's getting streamlined, and it's an amazing product. Quality-wise, and I feel coaching-wise, it is a coaching product. It's a learning tool. It's the opposite of a training aid. It's the antithesis of a training aid. Don't really want to call it a training aid. It's a learning system, training system, because it's actually for you to organise your movement within all that noise. So we perturbate the system, lots of interference, but there's a frame of reference for you to operate within, and then you can start, the noise dampens. We still need some level of noise, because that's how we found our original most efficient pattern. We needed the noise. And then we can start to steer the ship safely. But we're now moving within those rhythms. We attune ourselves to that environment, to the ocean. It's like when you get on a boat, and first of all, the vestibular system's all over the place, and the boat, you feel like this, and then after an hour, half an hour to an hour on the boat, maybe a couple of beers helps on the crossing, but suddenly you don't recognise it until you probably get back off the boat, back onto stable land, and you're still moving. So you're harmonising the body, it's habitualising, it's harmonising to its environment. We're creating an environment for you to harmonise to, but it's a noisy environment, it needs to be, but there's a structure behind it. There's a framework that takes you through a journey, and that ultimately is the Learnscape that I've created. And it's copyrighted too, so because it's unique. You won't see these drills elsewhere. Well, you might do, but they'll be afterwards, after me, because I've not. I created. Yes, there's been a rock, there's been a footboard. Yes, there's been an 8-board before, twisting discs, but putting the two together and actually completely redesigning the whole thing has never been done. It was only my research that took me to this place. As I mentioned the other night, people have been using footboards, but they've been using them the same way. And my research actually brought me to a place where I suddenly found these things were out there, but didn't feel they were being used in the right way. And then my study obviously clarified that. Same with the 8-board. I mean, the 8-board was out there for, I think it's 14 years old. I bought mine over 10 years ago and never used it. Never saw the value in it, to be honest. I bought it thinking it's great, but I don't even think the inventor kind of knew its true purpose. He was a tennis coach. And then it's only subsequently, funnily enough, since I've been using them in my videos, that people have been starting using these rotational discs and saying, oh, they've been around for a long time. Well, they have, but the way they've been used, or the way they are currently being used, hasn't been around. Because that was born out of my research. So I don't want to be, I'm not precious about it. Like I've said, I actually want us all to recognise it. And then we're not plagiarising each other's work. We're not passing it off and discrediting people or taking credit for their work. And we can all work in a healthy environment as fellow coaches, trying to help people. That's all we're trying to do. So it's all about just recognising each other, mentioning it, and then we can work and adapt together, grow the game together. That's what it's about, growing the game together and helping each other. That's what it's all about. More love in the game. Do you find most issues by... Marcus, I can't wait to get my board. Cheers, Danny. Do you think it will evolve? Yeah. Do you think most issues, by the way, clients handle the board or other fundamental issues? Yeah. Is height of the ball directly for position after? No. Would you recommend fatter grapes? Does it fit the Zen philosophy? Doesn't really matter. Will the online resource support be available for late adopters? Yes, everything's available. Bring on the noise. Exactly, Jared. If you ever franchise Zen, I want the first dibs in the Glasgow area. Mate, I can't franchise this thing because I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what it is, mate. It changes every time. That's the thing. We're reinventing as much as the person is who's having the lesson. And you've got to be prepared to walk the walk as a coach. I often say you've got to free climb. If you're expecting them to change, you've got to be prepared to change as a coach in that session. You've got to intuitively react and adapt and change the environment to facilitate that learning process. That person has got to respond to that environment, and you're reading the whole situation physically, mentally, emotionally. And that's why I only teach 6 hours a day. This thing drains you. And you've got to be 100% for everybody. So it's 3-hour sessions. Plenty of Irish coffee. It's only coffee, really. Anyway, guys, I hope we've got on again. I've not even got the flight scope on. I brought it, set it all up, screens on. Not even used it. If someone finds a better way to use the boards and we're working together, I'm all for it. I'm like, this thing's got to evolve, and there's cleverer people than me out there. I mean, I'm fortunate, I work with a lot of them at Sheffield Hallam. So I've been looking to work with them for a long time. And I've got force plates here, 3D, everything. So been using this system for 12 years. And that's evolved too. So yeah, it's very exciting, guys, and I really hope you're enjoying it, enjoying the journey, because I'm on the journey with you. And when you said, does it evolve? It's always evolving, and we're evolving together, Jared. So that's the fun of it. I don't know where this thing's going. I don't know where a lesson's going to go. And that's the difficulty of this kind of coaching. That's the fear factor for coaches, really, because I don't know what's going to happen, because ultimately we're just challenging the body and seeing how it responds and then reacting, which is what all coaches are doing. But I'm not prescribing a system of A plus B equals C. Yes, from a biomechanics standpoint, I'm looking at functional patterns, I'm looking at biomechanical principles, but the body finds a way of adhering to those, operating with those in its own way. So, and everything is involved in the system. So you change one thing, you change everything. So we don't change it, the body changes it out of necessity. And that necessity is born out of the challenge that's been placed on the system. We are stressing the system, creating noise, and the body creates the change. That's grip, that's stance, that's posture, that's everything, guys. There are no fundamentals to this thing. There is no such thing as early extension. Someone made that up. All these things you've heard and been coined, that have been coined in golf, they've all been made up. It's created a language. And in one of my videos, I talk about the prison. We might think we're out of prison, but really we're just out of the prison cell for a bit, but we're still within the prison walls. because we are still stuck in the confines of our own reality. We're still using the same language. In golfing terms, we're using the golfing jargon. This has context and meaning which constrains us. And unfortunately, it's so strong, it doesn't offer as much affordance to change with our movement. So we get stuck and we start asking questions like, no disrespect, but how should I grip? How should I, what's this, what's that? Asking, almost like the coach is a god and he's got the answers. And no coach there's no such thing as a guru. There's no such thing as the coaches don't know. I don't know. It just emerges. Doesn't need language. Movement doesn't need language. So coaching's gone down a very, very, I think, dangerous road really over the last few decades. I think it's almost like the coach is as big, if not bigger than the player. Even the coach is saying my players. It's like as if the coach owns the players. It's like, and the players have a dependency on the coach that they need the coach or they can't function. It's like, this is dysfunctional, guys. This is a dystopian universe that is been developing. This is dictatorship. Who wants to live in a dictatorship? Guys, I love all the comments. Thank you very much. It means the world. It really does. That's why I do it. It's to share the message, and this message is, it's going to be the same all the time. It's like there's a continual theme. If ever there's anything that is consistent in this game, it's got to be the message that you send, because you've got to be true to your values. Talking about that, check out the chat, the Instagram live last Monday with Dr. Mark Nesty, sports psychologist to Premiership football teams, Yorkshire Cricket Club, Olympic athletes, Team GB athletes, spent his life, he was Professor of Psychology for Liverpool John Moores, he's now retired, but it's all applied. Absolutely amazing. Been working with with Alex, who I worked with for a long time, so I've known Mark quite a long time, and very, very philosophically aligned. The guy's a genius. We're all the way with you. Thank you, Terry. Love it, and the game is more enjoyable. Thanks, mate. I'm feeling the love. I'm sharing it, sending it straight back, pal. Sharing it. Have you ever had a client you couldn't improve? The only way they don't improve is if they don't want to improve. It's a decision. It's everybody asks that when no session's perfect. But if you take the leap of faith, if you allow your body the opportunity to change, it will change. So in the session, quite often I'll get, does it stick? It's not about sticking, it's about maintaining that mindset and developing that mindset further to allow the skill set to continually adapt and evolve, and use this philosophy moving forward to continue and grow and improve more. So it's more, the ownership is on you. You take the responsibility, not the coach. The coach can't take ownership for your game, and that's where we've been for such a long time. It's time that the player looked in the mirror and started asking themselves questions, and sometimes the answers are uncomfortable. But that's why we have to downward spiral, because it is uncomfortable, and you have to go there to then reorganize, reinvent, and upstream. And that's the exciting thing. That's what you see in the lessons that lead to that crescendo or that eureka moment. And we're allowing the body to do that. You can't fail if you let your body organize it. It's the system is enabling the body to organize itself. It's ecological psychology, so at the heart of it. So it's it can't fail if you let the body do it. It's how much are you willing to let the body do it? Are you holding on? There's that conscious bias. You're aware of it. Are you willing to let it go? That cognitive bias, where you've been trained in a certain way and that's your belief. And that becomes a subconscious bias. And that's the resistance that you'll sometimes see me fighting against me and you in a lesson. We're on a journey together and I'm working with your subconscious through the conscious mind. And we're having this tussle. And eventually it all starts to reform. The whole thing becomes reframed. But that's why it's so emotionally immersive, because it consumes you, because you need to go to those places with that person, because it's a journey we undertake together. Guys, I'm going to have to go. I really appreciate your support. I love the comments. I love the passion. I share that too. Thank you very much. But guys, I really appreciate it. I'm so pleased you value this like I do. And you feel, you've got that, you can feel the energy and the meaning of what's behind this. And that's going to help you, that's going to elevate you to improve your performance. So it's inspiring me, it's inspiring you. Together we pull together as a collective, we all help each other. We're a community at the end of the day. We're a global community. And that's why I've created this training system, so we can share the experience and talk a common language and develop together. So guys, thank you very much. Wherever you are watching, I really appreciate it. Stay safe, take care of yourselves and each other. And guys, we'll catch up soon. See you later.